Story 1. One Sunday, my friends and I went hiking. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor. We had been hiking all day and we were tired but happy to be heading back to town. The forest was alive with the sounds of birdsong, and the air was thick with the scent of pine trees. As we rounded a bend in the trail, we came across a lone figure. He was tall and thin, with a weathered face and a shock of white hair. He carried a hunting rifle, its barrel glinting ominously in the fading light. We stopped in our tracks, our hearts pounding in our chests. The man didn't say anything, but he stared at us with cold, lifeless eyes. We felt a chill run down our spines, and we knew that something was very wrong. The man raised his rifle and we froze in terror. What was he going to do? The man fired a shot into the air. The sound was deafening and it echoed through the forest. We flinched, our ears ringing from the noise. The man then lowered his rifle and pointed it directly at us. His eyes were cold and lifeless, his expression devoid of emotion. We stood there paralyzed with fear, our minds racing. What was he going to do? After minutes of silence, the man turned and disappeared into the dense undergrowth. We stood there in stunned silence, our bodies trembling with fear. Was he gone? We continued our trek back to town, our minds replaying the terrifying encounter with the hunter. We couldn't believe what had just happened. We had been so close to danger. When we finally reached town, we immediately went to the police station to report the incident. The police officer we spoke to was very concerned about what we had told him. He said that he would send a search party into the forest to look for the hunter. As we left the police station, we felt a sense of relief wash over us. We were safe, and the hunter was at large. But we knew that we would never forget our terrifying encounter in the woods. Story 2. John, Mary, and their 2 children, Sarah and Tom, were excited for their camping trip. They had packed their car with all the necessary supplies and set off for the woods, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. They had heard good things about this particular campground, nestled deep in the heart of the forest, away from the crowds and noise. After hours of driving, they finally arrived at the campground. They pitched their tent and set up a campfire, feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride. The air was crisp and clean, and the stars shone brightly overhead. It was the perfect setting for a relaxing family getaway. As they sat around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories, a strange smell began to waft through the air. It was a pungent, unpleasant odor, unlike anything they had ever smelled before. It was a mixture of decay and something else, something sinister. The family tried to ignore the smell, but it only grew stronger. They huddled closer together, their hearts pounding in unison. The smell seemed to be emanating from the surrounding woods, growing closer with each passing moment. Then, they heard it, the sound of footsteps. The footsteps were soft and muffled, but they were clearly audible. They seemed to be coming from all around them, as if they were being surrounded by an unseen presence. The family froze in terror, their eyes wide with fear. The footsteps grew louder, and then they heard voices. The voices were whispering, their words unintelligible yet chilling to the core. It was as if the woods themselves were speaking, taunting them with their secrets. The family was trapped in a waking nightmare, surrounded by an unseen presence that filled them with dread. They didn't know what was happening, but they knew they had to escape. John grabbed Sarah and Tom, and Mary grabbed her flashlight. They ran blindly through the woods, the footsteps and voices growing louder with each step. They stumbled and fell, but they didn't dare slow down. Finally, they reached the edge of the woods. They ran as fast as they could, their lungs burning, their hearts pounding. They didn't look back until they reached their car, and even then, they were half expecting to see something lurking behind them. They drove away from the campground, leaving the strange smells, the footsteps, and the voices behind. They never returned to those woods again, and they never spoke of what happened. The experience was too terrifying to relive. To this day, the family still wonders what happened to them in the woods. Was it a real encounter with the supernatural, or was it a product of their imagination? They will never know for sure, but they will never forget the chilling experience that left them with scars that run deeper than skin. Story 3. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the dense forest canopy. I was on my way back from a day of foraging for herbs, my basket overflowing with my bounty. The forest was alive with the sounds of birdsong and the rustling of leaves, and I felt a sense of peace and tranquility wash over me. Suddenly, I heard a voice calling my name. I stopped in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked around, but there was no one in sight. I must have imagined it, I thought. I continued walking, but the voice called my name again, this time closer. I turned in the direction of the sound, but I could see no one. The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere, and nowhere at all. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt a sense of dread creeping into my heart. I tried to shake off the feeling, but it only grew stronger. I was walking through a thicket of bushes when I tripped and fell. I landed in a pile of leaves and sticks, and I could feel something hard beneath me. I brushed away the leaves and saw that I had fallen into a pit. I looked up and saw that the pit was surrounded by trees, with gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The sun was setting, and the shadows were growing long. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I tried to climb out of the pit, but the walls were too steep. I scrambled around, desperately trying to find a way out, but there was no escape. I was about to give up when I heard the voice again. It was closer now, and it was louder. I could hear it whispering my name, taunting me, laughing at me. I closed my eyes and tried to block out the sound, but it was no use. The voice was inside my head, filling my mind with terror. I felt hands reaching down into the pit, grabbing me, pulling me deeper into the darkness. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was trapped, helpless, doomed to a terrible fate. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I heard voices calling my name, human voices, voices of salvation. I opened my eyes and saw that people were shining flashlights down into the pit. They threw me a rope, and I pulled myself out of the pit. I was shaking with fear, but I was alive. The people who had rescued me were hikers who had heard my screams. They had followed the sound of my voice and found me in the pit. I thanked them for saving me, and we walked out of the forest together. I never went back to those woods again, and I never forgot the terrifying ordeal that I had endured. The forest is a beautiful place, but it can also be a dangerous one. There are creatures that lurk in the shadows, waiting for unsuspecting victims. If you ever find yourself lost in the woods, don't panic. Stay calm and try to find your way out. And if you hear a voice calling your name, don't follow it. It might lead you to a place where you never want to go. Story 4. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the towering trees lining the winding road, the Anderson family ventured deep into the woods, their car humming along the secluded stretch. They were headed to their tranquil cabin, a place to escape the city's clamor and reconnect with nature. As they delved deeper, the road narrowed and darkness engulfed them. The only sounds were their car's engine, chirping crickets, and an owl's occasional hoot. The air was thick with pine and damp earth. Suddenly, a pair of headlights glared menacingly in John's rearview mirror. A pickup truck, its headlights blindingly bright, tailgated them. John tried to ignore it, hoping it would pass, but it remained glued to their bumper, its presence unsettling. Fear gripped the car. John sped up, but the truck matched their pace. He slowed down, but the truck followed suit. Panic surged through John as he realized they were being played with. Before John could react, the truck rammed them from behind, sending their car jolting forward inches from the cliff's edge. John slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding relentlessly. Their car skidded to a halt, teetering on the precipice. John checked on his family, shaken but unharmed. The truck pulled up beside them, its driver staring with a cold, sinister smile. John, his anger boiling, was about to confront him when Sarah's voice cut through the tension. "John, don't," she whispered, fear lacing her words. "Let's just leave." John, seeing the malice in the driver's eyes, knew Sarah was right. He returned to his car, started the engine, and cautiously backed away from the menacing truck. As they drove away, the truck's headlights faded into the distance. Their hearts pounded with fear, not daring to look back. They drove for what seemed like an eternity, the truck's presence lingering in their rearview mirror. Finally reaching their cabin, they collapsed inside, exhausted and relieved. The terrifying encounter remained unspoken, too fresh in their minds. The next morning, sirens shattered the silence. Police swarmed the area, searching for the truck and its driver. Officers informed them of another family attacked by a pickup truck driver, their description matching the one they had just escaped.